It's Money Talk Tuesday. Welcome and welcome back for those of you who come back. Today, my name is Shaitia Sproul. Today, we'll be going over Mass Health 101 with Mass Health. We're going to go over this, our quick little agenda. We'll talk about what the Office of Economic Empowerment is, go over disclosures, any quick housekeeping, and then we'll get to our presenter, Heather Rossi from Mass Health. And just remember to stick around till the end because we do have an exit poll looking for feedback. Quick about the Office of Economic Empowerment. The Office of Economic Empowerment, also known as OEE, is a department within the Office of the Treasurer and Receiver General of Massachusetts, supporting, advocating, and facilitating policies that empower all Massachusetts residents. Our programs serve women, families, high school students, veterans, and seniors. Our priorities include closing the wage gap, increasing access to financial education, improving college affordability, and investing in STEM careers and education. This is a Zoom webinar and will be recorded. The recording may be uploaded onto a public website for future use. Reminder, this webinar is also streamed live on Facebook. Any information shared through the question functions will be anonymous, but please note, however, the chat record is subject to public record laws and as such is not anonymous. Housekeeping. Remember, this is a webinar, not a meeting, so you will not be able to view other participants. You can use the chat feature to communicate to the host, myself and Heather. Q&As will be available throughout the webinar. That's if you're in the app, it's in that bottom bar there. You can click the Q&A to submit a question. And remember, please complete the exit poll. And then just as a reminder, veterans benefits, we're going over November 10th, and then we're going to do another Money Talk on November 17th, featuring wayfinders on foreclosures and how to avoid it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, want to know what the other upcoming Money Talks are going to be, shoot us an email at moneytalk@tre.state.ma.us. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our lovely presenter, Ms. Heather Rossi from Mass Health, and enjoy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Rossi. I am the Deputy Policy Director for Eligibility at Mass Health, and I'm going to provide an overview of Mass Health today. So I am going to share my screen with you. Hopefully everyone can see that okay. So again, pleasure to be here today, participating in this event and sharing this update or this information with folks. First slide is just the agenda, the topics that I'm going to cover, starting with applying for Mass Health, some basic eligibility rules. We'll talk a little bit about health plan enrollment. And then I'll talk some about, and at the end of the deck, there are some resources included in here, informational materials that are available to members, applicants, providers, and interested parties if you'd like to learn more about Mass Health. The Mass Health mission statement, we work to improve the health outcomes of our diverse members, their families, and their communities by providing access to integrated healthcare services that sustainably promote health, well-being, independence, and quality of life. How to apply for Mass Health. Mass Health has two main applications. We have what's called the Application for Health and Dental Coverage and Help Paying Costs, or the ACA 3. This is for applicants who are 64 and younger, and applicants over the age of 65 that are a parent caretaker of children under the age of 19. The other application is Application for Health Coverage for Seniors and People Needing Long-Term Care Services, or the SACA 2. And this is for individuals and couples over the age of 65 in terms of long-term services and supports. This is typically known as long-term care or nursing facility services, but also includes our home and community-based services waivers, which are long-term services and supports that are provided to individuals living in the community. And again, or long-term care services in a medical institution or nursing facility. At the bottom is a link to our applications that'll bring you directly to the application page. If you'd like to take a look at those. There are 20 plus pages. There is a significant amount of information that is collected at the point of application to determine eligibility. And in particular through the SACA 2 application, where we have increased or additional financial eligibility standards that we must test individuals against. And that includes looking at an individual's assets and determining that they are within the allowable asset limit. There are several ways to apply to MassHealth. If you are using the ACA 3, and again, that's 5, or parent caretakers, individuals over age 65 who are parent caretakers of children under the age of 19, you can apply one of 4 ways. Online through www.mahealthconnector.org. This is our online integrated eligibility platform. We do share this platform with the Massachusetts Health Connector. This is a platform that will allow for online applications. You can also apply by phone, calling our customer service center. You can apply by mail from organizations that have copies. You can mail it to the Health Insurance Processing Center in Taunton, and you can also fax the applications in. And this is eFax that goes to our Electronic Document Management Center. In normal times or typical times, we also have in-person available. However, our offices, we have 6 MassHealth enrollment centers, are now closed to in-person visits. Therefore, that's not an option at this time, but if we were not in a public health emergency, over 65 application, there are 2 ways to apply, and that is by mail and fax. Again, if we were not in a public health emergency, there would also be the option to apply in person. However, our enrollment centers are currently not open to in-person visits. We do not have an online application portal for individuals over 65 or who need long-term care services. That is not an option that is available for this population. So you either apply by mail or by fax. Next, I just wanted to go over some of the decision timelines. I know this is a question that I get often. How long does MassHealth have to make an eligibility decision? And we have 45 days from the date of the application to make an eligibility determination. So we have 45 days from whatever date we receive that application. There are a couple of exceptions. We allow 60 days or allowed 60 days for an application if potentially eligible for family assistance. Family assistance is one of our coverage types, and we'll get into that a little bit more. Ways to make a determination for individuals who are applying on the basis of disability. Included, and note at the bottom, included in every approval or denial notice is information on how to ask for a fair hearing and a fair hearing request form to appeal the decision. So if an individual does not agree with the decision that was made by the department, they can request a fair hearing, and that should be done within 30 days of the decision being made. They can also request to have what's known as aid benefits. They can have those benefits reinstated and pending the appeal decision. Those requests need to be made within 10 days of receiving the determination. And the other note here that I skipped over, apologies, Applicants will receive what's called a request for information, or RFI, approval or denial notice. So when we receive the application, we'll make a determination. You will either be approved or you will be denied, or we may send you a request for additional information was not sufficient to determine eligibility. Therefore, we ask individuals to send in additional information to assist with making that eligibility determination. And just to follow up on that, verification of eligibility factors. We will attempt in every situation, in every instance, to verify applicant information electronically via state and federal data matches. Through our integrated eligibility platform we have access to this provides us access to data from several federal agencies, including Social Security Administration, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Internal Revenue Service. And we're able through those to verify citizenship, immigration status, and income that's reported on your taxes. We also have state sources or state verification with the Department of Revenue. We do matching with them. It's outside us, and also new hire files from the Department of Revenue, where we're able to verify or update information based on what we receive from that agency. So if the application information is inconsistent, this is what I was saying before, with the information available from the data source, a notice will be sent listing the information that's needed, the types of acceptable proofs, and the latest date MassHealth can accept the proofs to establish eligibility. You have 90 days to verify your whatever it is that is inconsistent. In the case of individuals over the age of 65, we provide a 30-day time frame to respond. If all proofs are not received by this due date, we will use the information that was supplied through the systematic matching, determine eligibility based on that, and send a notice explaining eligibility. If no information is available electronically and proof is received at a later date, proof may date because we will no longer be able to use the date of receipt. A couple of other forms that I wanted to make sure folks were aware of are authorizations to share information with third parties. One is the permission to share information. This gives an individual or organization permission to share and discuss an applicant or member's information with MassHealth. This individual, if you have permission to share information, cannot make changes to the case. It only gives us the ability to designate it as the what we call PSI. An authorized representative designation, or ARD, allows the applicant member to assign an individual, or in some cases, an organization, to act on behalf regarding their MassHealth application and eligibility. So if you are designated as an ARD, you can actually act on the member's behalf, and changes can be made to the case based on information that is provided by the ARD. Next up are MassHealth renewals. We are required by federal law to renew households annually. Every 12 months, we need to confirm that you remain eligible for MassHealth benefits. We have what are known as automatic renewals, where we systematically can renew individuals if the information that we receive via data matching is consistent, and we will auto renew a household for an additional 12 months. At the time of application, we will send notification that there are discrepancies in the data, and we need you to verify for us what is in fact the correct data that we should be using for the eligibility determination. The notice that we send is what we call a pre-populated form, or PPF. This form is our standard renewal form, and it pre-populates the data fields with the data that we have available and asks the member to confirm that is in fact accurate and to send back to us within 45 days. You can renew online if you are under the age of 65 or a parent caretaker over the age of 65 with children under the age of 19. You can renew by phone, you can renew by paper, and the addresses are again included here of where the renewals can be sent. And it does vary based on if you're under 65 or older 65. Jumping into MassHealth eligibility. MassHealth does conduct eligibility determinations. There are a number of universal eligibility requirements, categorical eligibility requirements, and financial eligibility requirements. We are a means-tested program, so there are income limits, and in the case you are over 65 or require long-term care, there is also an asset limit. Starting with the universal requirements, this means that every applicant must meet these at a minimum. You must be a resident of Massachusetts, or you intend to reside in the state, and there are ways to verify your intent to resign. Those are prescribed in our regulations, and information is also available online and in our member booklets on the verification that can be accepted in those cases. Qualifying immigration status. The qualifying immigration statuses are listed here: qualified non-citizen, protected non-citizen, qualified non-citizen barred. They have not yet met the 5-year requirement. Individually lawfully present, person residing under the color of law, or PRUCOL, which is a Massachusetts only designation. And then other non-citizen. Other non-citizens are typically individuals that do not have immigration status or do not have documentation. We do those situations. Federal law, Medicaid law does allow us to cover emergency services for those individuals. Next, you must have a social security number. The next is assignment of rights to medical support and third-party payments. So we are the payer of last resort. The expectation is that if you have other insurance available to you, you take advantage of that and notify us of that so that we can enter that into our system and not be billed prior to your. It just refers to the ability to obtain payments if there is third-party liability, which would be other insurance, to seek reimbursement for any claims that we may have paid when they should have been covered by that third party. And then potential sources of healthcare and utilization of potential benefits. Again, if you have other sources available to you, you need to take advantage of those and notify us so that we can enter that into our system. I've now broken this out into eligibility for individuals under 65, and then later on we'll go into those who are over 65 and long-term care. Starting with our eligibility requirements, and this pertains to individuals, families, and people with disability, all under the age of 65. There are those categorical requirements that I was speaking about before. They must fit into one of these categories. So we are either looking at your age, you are a child, or you have a certain status, such as you are pregnant, you are considered medically frail, you are a former foster youth, You have breast and cervical cancer, or receiving breast and cervical cancer treatment. You are HIV positive. So there are a number of things that we look at that an individual attests to on the application, and that we use to determine the appropriate coverage type for that individual, because your categorical eligibility does serve as the basis for the coverage type itself. And then within the coverage type, we have different categories of us. We get very granular with our eligibility as we're required to. So within a coverage type, if you were to have Mass Health Standard, there are 20 different categories that you could possibly fit into within the standard coverage type. The next are the financial eligibility requirements. We do use income to determine your eligibility. For the under 65 population, we use a methodology known as modified adjusted gross income. This was a methodology used IRS based, it is an IRS based methodology. We do use tax filing status to as the basis for building household composition. So in the pre-ACA days, we would have considered a household anybody who was listed on the application. Now we are going to look at who you are claiming as a dependent. So the head of household, when they fill out that application, is telling us about their tax, and that is how we build our household composition. So you could have, in the case of, say, 5 individuals living in a household, depending on what that tax filing status is, there could be 3 up to as many as 3 or 4 different household compositions that we're using to determine that individual's eligibility. And then, of course, we compare this to the federal poverty guidelines, and each coverage type and category within the coverage. Moving on to the Mass Health coverage types. So now we've done the eligibility, we've gathered all of the information from the application, we're doing an eligibility determination, and the result of that is going to place you into one of these coverage types. And very broadly, they're known as Mass Health Standard, Mass Health Care Plus, Mass Health Common Health, Mass Health Family Assistance, Mass Health Limited, the Children's Medical Security Plan, or CMSP, and the Health Safety Net, or basically a coverage type. It is a reimbursement mechanism. It is what was used to be known as the uncompensated care pool. This is for individuals who do not have access to insurance but have medical expenses. They can apply to have those expenses reimbursed through the uncompensated care pool. The individual factors that determine coverage type often change. Anytime you have a change in circumstances, it may impact the coverage type that you are in. For example, if you will go into Mass Health Standard, you have an income limit of 250% FPL or 200% FPL, federal poverty level. Once you report that you are no longer pregnant, you may now move over to Mass Health Care Plus, which is for adults 21 to 64 with income up to 133% of the FPL. So the changing of your financial and your categorical eligibility factors is coverage types. Mass Health also requires that an individual report any changes to their circumstances within 10 days of that change. So if you have a change in income, you have a change in categorical status, you should be contacting the agency, or the individual should be contacting the agency to report that change so that we can update your eligibility determination. I've included in here some charts, this attempts to break down. So as you can see, it does vary based on your income, your categorical status, but also your citizenship and immigration, because only citizens and certain immigration statuses can get certain types of coverage. Or if you have certain immigration statuses, you may fall into a different income range. So I will not go through all of this. I just wanted to explain what this chart is. So again, it's going to have a certain condition, or you are of a certain age, your income, and then the citizenship status. And I've done this for all of the coverage types. So we've got Care Plus, Common Health. Common Health is, just so if folks are not familiar with that, is our coverage type for individuals with disabilities. So we only cover disabled individuals on this, and we do cover both children and adults. Family assistance. And this is quite lengthy. Certain populations at all state cost, such as the non-qualified PRUCALs, because again, since that is a Massachusetts only immigration designation, it is not recognized at the federal level, we do need to cover this at state cost. Next is Mass Health Limited. If you recall earlier in the presentation, I did mention that Mass Health Limited covers emergency services only. So this is for individuals who do not have qualifying immigration status or are considered other under federal law to cover emergency services only. Children's Medical Security Plan, which is a state construct for certain children under the age of 19. And last is the Health Safety Net, which again is that uncompensated care pool. Next, moving into eligibility for our seniors and people in need of long-term services and supports. For seniors, anybody age 65 and older, and they are living in the community and have citizenship and qualifying immigration status, you could potentially qualify for Mass Health if you meet the financial eligibility requirements that are laid out here. So for our individuals 65 and older, we do have a lower income threshold than you would have seen on the under 65 side. The income limit is 100% of the federal poverty level. And I have included the federal poverty level chart, sense of what 100% translates into dollar-wise, that is available. We do apply standard income deductions for this population. So there are certain things that we can deduct from their gross income, which perhaps gets them closer to, if they are over the 100%, it may get them closer to or under the 100% once we deduct those income, that additional income. There's also an asset limit. For example, it is $3,000. There are certain things that we do not look at in terms of assets, including one vehicle and primary residence. However, everything else is pretty much considered a countable asset. Again, there are exceptions to that. Disabled seniors, if they are found ineligible for standard, may actually still get Common Health if they are working 40 hours a month. So registration to provide Mass Health Common Health to individuals who exceed the income threshold for standard, which is again 100% of the federal poverty level. And if they are working the minimum 40 hours per month, they could potentially get on Common Health. Eligibility requirements for people in need of long-term services and supports in the community. These are known as our home and community-based services waivers. The category are receiving long-term care services and supports at home. So we have 11 waivers that the home and community-based services waivers that the department administers, and we serve all age ranges on these waivers. If you are under the age of 65, however, you must be determined disabled. There is also a clinical approval process that an individual must go through. So they must meet certain clinical standards to be determined eligible for a home and community-based services waiver. And again, they must have citizenship. The thresholds are slightly different. We use what is known as the federal benefit rate as opposed to the federal poverty level. And the income limit is set at 300% of the federal benefit rate. There are also standard income deductions that are allowed. So again, if you have certain expenses, they can be deducted from your gross income that is used in determining your eligibility. And we also have the asset limit, which again is set at $2,000 for the individual and $3,000 for a couple. For individuals in need of long-term services and supports who are in a long-term care facility, the categorical eligibility for these individuals, again, citizen, qualified non-citizen, or protected non-citizen. They reside in a skilled nursing facility, chronic disease and rehab hospital, or a state hospital or school designated as a long-term care facility. They have been determined by Mass Health or its agents. We do conduct the level of care assessments on our behalf. So they have been determined as medically needing long-term care services in a skilled nursing facility. And they have the approved level of care document provided by a medical professional. The financial eligibility for this population, essentially there is no income limit. And that is because we have what's called a patient paid amount. And the patient paid amount is the member's contribution to the costs of the allowable income limit, which is 100% of the federal poverty level, is used to calculate the patient paid amount. So if you are $500 over the income limit, then you would be expected to contribute $500 to the cost of your care, and that would be at the nursing facility. So every month you would pay that excess $500 to the facility, and Mass Health would then cover the remainder of that. The asset limits are slightly different here. For the individual themselves, it's still the $2,000, but as you'll see, the couple is substantially more than if they are in the community. And that is because we have special rules for the spouse that remains in the community. We recognize that there is cost of living, and so they need to retain, they can retain a certain amount of the joint assets in order to ensure that they can continue or maintaining their residency within the community itself. All right, moving on to health plan enrollment. So this is the part of the process where we have determined your eligibility. We have identified the coverage type that you will be going into. You've received your approval notice, and now we've identified that you are in a coverage type that is what we call managed care eligible. So for our under 65 population, pretty much all of our coverage type is managed care eligible, meaning you need to enroll in a health plan. Managed care organizations in Mass Health that we contract with, and they provide the managed care coordination for the individual. We also have the primary care clinician plan, which is something of a fee-for-service based model with a care coordination component to it. So again, you've gotten your approval notice, and now you're getting a notice that says you need to pick a health plan. You have 14 days from the date that you're determined eligible to pick up enrolled in a plan. There is an algorithm that we use, a matching algorithm, based on a number of factors that will identify the appropriate plan for the individual to enroll them in. The managed care eligible population is under 65, have no other insurance. If you do have other insurance, you have third-party liability, including Medicare. You are not prohibited from being on Mass Health. Again, we are just the payer of last resort. But if you do have other insurance, and then the last two requirements are living in the community and in one of the following coverage types: standard, common health care plus, or family assistance. Limited, CMSP, and HSN are not managed care eligible. The next slide, I've provided a overview of the health plan options that are available. The accountable care partnership plans, ACOs, are all listed here. We've also got our primary care ACO plan, our MCOs, and our PCC plan. So this is just to give you an overview of what the enrollment options that are available. And at Mass Health, we do have an independent enrollment broker. It is Maximus, who also oversees our customer service center. So they are available to assist individuals with the enrollment process. We also have tools available on our website to help individuals identify the appropriate health plan, and based on where they are living, are slightly different. They all, at a minimum, have to cover what Mass Health covers, but they may have some additional benefits to joining, similar to what we have in our health insurance, where there may be some wellness benefits or things of that nature that are also covered. The next slide is an overview of our accountable care partnership plan. So diving a little bit deeper in, individuals who are managed care eligible and live in the service area covered by an ACO may opt to enroll in one of these, one of the accountable care organizations. You do have to choose a PCP or primary care physician within the network. And then we'll talk about plan selection a little bit later. I don't want to get into that. Your medical and behavioral health services all will come from the accountable care partnership plans network. So there are network requirements that come along with the managed care enrollment. You need to use their network. The primary care ACOs, you have to choose a PCP within that primary care's ACO network. Your medical services are through the primary care ACO. Your behavioral health services, however, are through the Massachusetts Behavioral Health Partnership Network. MBHP is a behavioral health services organization, care coordination organization that we contract with. They provide our behavioral health benefits for children, and they also do for the primary care ACOs. Managed care organizations, just a different flavor. And the primary care clinician plan. This is, as I mentioned before, more of a fee-for-service based model where Mass Health is paying the claims as opposed to the managed care network itself paying the claims, which you would see in the previous three. The medical services are through the providers in the Mass Health network. and received through MBHP, our behavioral health contractor. The health plan enrollment process, again, individuals have 14 days from the date that they are determined eligible to pick a plan. If not, they will be auto-enrolled. And here are some of the resources that are available. Next, I want to talk very briefly about what is known as plan selection period and fixed enrollment period, 4 years, 3 or 4 years. So what we have now is when an individual is determined eligible, they have what's called a plan selection period. And so they have the 14 days to initially select their plan, but then they have a 90-day window for which they can move to a different plan, select a new plan for any reason. Again, that is the plan selection period. This is a 90-day window. Members can move to different health plans for any reason. After the 90-day plan selection period ends, they enter what we call the fixed enrollment period. So this is the period, and this goes through the remainder of the month, so those last 9 months, when there are only certain exceptions that will allow you to move to another health plan. So for the most part, you are fixed in the plan that you have selected to enroll in, unless you meet one of the exceptions, in which case our enrollment broker, Maximus, will help facilitate that process for you. Next, briefly on our COVID-19 public health emergency response. So we have been very active during this time period on the eligibility side. During the period of the public health emergency, folks may have heard that Medicaid agencies have what's called a maintenance of effort requirement in order to obtain enhanced revenue. Maintenance of effort requirement means that we cannot impose any stricter eligibility requirements than were in place on January 1 of this year. Additionally, we have to maintain coverage for anybody who had coverage or obtains coverage on or after March 18th, 2020. March 18th is the date that the public health emergency went into effect. And we are to maintain that coverage through the last day of the month in which the public health emergency ends. Not only are we to maintain their coverage, keep them from being terminated, but they also cannot have a decrease in benefits, what we refer to as downgrades. So if they were to have a change in their circumstances that prompted them to be eligible for a lesser benefit, something that it has a less rich benefit package, that is not allowed during this time period. The only instances that individuals can experience a loss of coverage is if they request termination of eligibility, they voluntarily withdraw, they are no longer a resident of Massachusetts, or they're deceased. At the bottom here, I've included a link to the Mass Health eligibility flexibilities for COVID-19. This is a document that lives on our website. It is a summary of all of the eligibility. One that I've gone over here, in which is that nobody will lose coverage during this time unless they meet one of these 3 reasons. But there are also some other flexibilities that we have implemented to make the application process easier for individuals. And those are all summarized in the document. But just to quickly go over or give an example, excuse me, we are accepting what we call self-attestation during this time. So if you're going back to the beginning of the presentation and you're in the eligibility, as you may recall, we'll send you a notice that says you need to provide one of these acceptable documents. Well, during the emergency period, we recognize the fact, and the federal government has recognized the fact, that it may not be easy to obtain such documentation during this time. In-person contact is down, businesses are closed, So they may not be able to get the verification that's necessary. To help address that, we have what's called self-attestation, which means the individual can contact the agency. They can call us by phone. They can, all of the information that I have attested to is accurate. I am unable to provide additional verification at this time. So with that attestation, we are able to verify the eligibility factors and determine their eligibility. I've included some resources here. We do have a COVID-19 Mass Health page, and there is information for applicants, members, and providers. And then I've also called out specifically the page for applicants and members, which talks about coverage for COVID-19 testing and treatment as part of the maintenance of effort requirements. Coverage for telehealth services, we have significantly increased or expanded our telehealth, the availability of telehealth services. There's information about pharmacy benefits, and then there's frequently asked questions. And now coming to the end of the presentation, this is the resources that I mentioned earlier. Here's a compilation of the various resources, the income standards, the federal poverty guidelines. We have our enrollment guide. This provides information about health plan enrollment and options that are available to individuals. We also have the Mass Health Choices website. This has a compare and enroll tool that's available to individuals. And then our website and general telephone number at the Customer Service Center. And that concludes my presentation for today. So I'll turn it back over.
Thank you so much, Heather. That was awesome. We did get quite a few questions in the chat, so I'm gonna roll back and ask those. If folks are still with us, feel free to drop more questions in the Q&A or the chat box. But I have one here from, I think it's, let's see, gotta go find it. Okay, from Gil. So a person living in a home with 5 people may certainly be accurate saying that they are a household of 1 if that person pays their own taxes on their form.
So if they are married, from a tax filing perspective, the spouse would be included. If they claim anybody else on their taxes, children or dependents, they would also be included in the individual's household. However, if they are unmarried, a single adult who files independently, claiming no dependents, yes, they would be a household of 1.
The next question is there coverage eligibility FPL chart available somewhere on the website?
It is, and I can provide that link to folks.
Okay. And then from Gil again, is any of this available to undocumented immigrants living in the USA? Can applying get them on an ICE list and open them up to even more for deportation?
We do not share any information with federal agencies. We use federal agencies to verify information that's been attested on the application, but we do not report to federal agencies. So we do not give any of this information to DHS. Undocumented immigrants can get Mass Health Limited. They could also potentially get HSN.
And what happens to seniors that at various points through the year, their checking account balance might float up to $3,000 or $4,000. What is the suggestion for them? Can they still be on Mass Health, or should they apply for something else?
If they go over the asset limit, they would be considered ineligible. So it is possible that they would lose their eligibility at that point. In terms of alternatives to Mass Health, they could look at the Health Connect, or actually, no, if they have Medicare, they wouldn't be eligible for the fallback to their Medicare if they have enrolled in Medicare. Most of our individuals who are over the age of 65 are enrolled in Medicare Part A and Part D, and many are also enrolled in Part B. And that is their primary insurance at the age of 65, if they are eligible for that entitlement. We again are the payer of last resort. So Medicare will always be billed before Mass Health.
Let's see. Is there pending legislation to increase that $2,000 asset level to something more reasonable? Gil says this makes it impossible to save for any big ticket items like a car, computer, vacation, or even the recommended level of savings from to pay 3 to 6 months of expenses in an emergency savings account. And then he gives the example like a government shutdown and when income is turned off.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know?
I am not aware of any current legislation. I know that there has been legislation in the past, but again, I'm not aware of. So yes, understand the constraints of the asset limit, but the asset limit is a requirement of federal law, although there is some flexibility to set that asset limit within the allowable limits at the state level.
Now, I have a question. The Office of Economic Empowerment promotes 529s, so college savings accounts. And I'm wondering, does the asset limit impact, I guess, the 529s or investment accounts that are related to education? Is that built into like the assets that they look at? Or is that something people can have and save money without it kind of messing with their eligibility?
So I would need to take a look at our regulations for that one specifically. I don't recall off the top of my head all of the countable and non-countable assets. I'm not sure if we encounter many individuals over the age of 65 with those accounts, which is when the asset test kicks in under 65 whatsoever, because there is no asset test unless you require long-term services and supports. But I'm happy to take that back and confirm if that is countable or not.
Thank you.
Sure.
Gonna give a couple more minutes for folks if you have any last minute questions. But in the meantime, I'm gonna throw up our exit poll just so we can collect some feedback. This helps us improve. And I'm gonna launch that now. So while y'all doing that, I'm gonna thank Ms. Heather so much for sharing your information with Mass Health and all of the great tips and links that we have provided in the chat. If you did register for this ahead of time, we are going to be sending a follow-up email with the recording as well as all of the links that we talked about today and some contact information if you have any other further questions. But thank you all for joining us. Again, thank you, Heather. And make sure you guys stay up to date with us because we have plenty more Money Talks for you all. And as it looks like, I'm not seeing any more questions. So you all have a fantastic rest of your day and we'll be seeing you all soon. Bye now. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Bye-bye now.